We have a lot
Yeah.
of folks who are going through RE cost seg now who bought a house for 80 grand, 120 grand, 150 grand. And
Hmm.
the payback on the study is still 15 times, what you pay for it. Let's
Yep.
talk about RE cost seg, what makes it a little bit different. I think a very interesting thing about this is you'll go to a lot of CPAs, and first of all, a lot of them are not aware of the 2017 change. The 2017 change that all of a sudden, not only new development was available for cost segregations, and also historically, a cost seg has frankly been $3,000 to $5,000 to get a cost segregation study done. The engineers come in, they visit your property, they take a bunch of pictures of it, they put it in CAD, they build your study, and they give it to you. RE cost seg, what we do is we have a virtual meeting. So, hey, Mitchell, let's walk through your property. Show me how many light fixtures you have. Show me your HVAC. Show me your roof. Let's measure all your square footage. Let's talk about the materials on your floor. How many fridges, how many sinks. We're going to walk through your property. And in a 2-hour walkthrough with your property manager or you, we can have all the information we need for our engineers to then build the model, do the full cost segregation study, and provide it to you. And what ends up being what used to cost $3,000 to $5,000 with a competitor, we can do for $1,000 to $2,000 at RE cost seg.
Sure. And yeah, we do $3,000 to $5,000 studies at RE cost seg all the time, but they're for bigger facilities. I mean, when you talk about 3 to 5, that was for the beach cottage and in Rockport or whatever. And yeah, so we've developed this, and we have this virtual site visit where you literally get on a Google Meet and we record the meet and we walk through, and some of them take long, but some of them don't take terribly long. We've already kind of qualified your property. We've gone through the county appraisal district. We've gone on to Redfin. We've looked at every photo you've given us. And now we're looking into particular questions and looking to really kind of engineer all the nuance into the report that way. And it saves us getting on an airplane and renting a hotel and kind of, having to do all that. But so I always say,
somebody said I'm a long distance offsite landlord. Would RE cost seg send someone on site to do the work? And the answer is for a $50 million storage portfolio, yes. For a $2 million commercial property, potentially. But for a house, I mean, we need somebody who can speak English and has a smartphone, and they can walk us through the properties. And that way we can keep costs very low and turn these around very quickly. RE cost seg's been around 1 year. In our first year, we've done how many studies? Over 700 studies, Mitchell. We have 26 staff.
Yep.
Impressive.
I say we do 100K to 100 million. And yeah, we do the $1,500 studies and we do the $15,000 studies and then up from there. And so we've been able to, we have people who do fly to your site, or we will contract kind of a local inspector if that makes sense, or we'll do the virtual site visit. But yeah, we've opened up this kind of like lower market of people who have, sub $200,000 houses where there's a lot of value. I mean, you go get $15,000 savings year one. That's not nothing. And we can bring that to you.
It's worth $1,000 cost seg study. So we have a lot of folks who are going through RE cost seg now who bought a house for 80 grand, 120 grand, 150 grand. And the payback on the study is still 15 times, what you pay for it.
Not bad.
Can you talk about the timing of a cost seg? This person says they've heard it's better to get a cost seg before a lot of TI is done on the property, or should we do it after we get it all set up and later do the bonus with Section 179 on the TI?
This becomes a issue of the size of the property and the scope of the engagement. But like in the ideal world, the day you close on the property, we walk through it, we take video, we take pictures. The day you open the property for service, we kind of run the second half of the initial cost seg study. And then, like I said, if you're selling $100 million building, you probably want to cost seg it before you sell it and do a purchase price allocation, because depending on how big the thing is, it's worth spending a couple of $1,000s to really nail the tax nuance of, getting it set up right the first time, figuring out what you're tearing out, figuring out what you're putting back in as TI, going from there. And so we work with our client. I mean, we like to work with people as partners in the sense that like sometimes some of our repeat folks, they get an LOI on a property and they kind of go, hey, I've teed up another one. I'm like really nailing down the
Yeah,
model. What
Bolt
is the
gets
depreciation going to be?
we get proposals before we even buy a property. I mean, we're going to send every property we get under contract. We'll close 90% of the deals we get under contract, but we do waste a little bit of RE Cost Seg's time, and they don't mind because they can provide us a proposal and we can underwrite for our LPs what our deductions will be. Guy says, I bought a self-storage facility. All the doors are locked. How can we get in and film the walls if we don't have pictures, if we can't get in the units? And the answer to that is we know they're there. We have a site plan and we can calculate the square footage of those walls. Can you carry cost seg losses forward towards passive income in future years, Mitchell?
Yeah, you can. You can't be a passive loss person and 1 year become a real estate pro and then collapse all those passive losses into your real estate pro life now. You know what I mean? So you can't kind of play with it that way. But if you go, hey, I'm a W-2 high earner, I know I'm going to be passive forever, but I know I'm going to do a lot of deals. Yes, you can kind of keep bucketing all the passive losses. And then as your deals hit and as your gains come in, they will absorb the passive losses going forward, and you'll just be able to keep doing that. So it all snowballs if you have a long-term plan, you know?
Okay, let's do a couple case studies now. So case study number one is a short-term rental. It was in the Southeast. This is a real client. We're going to keep them anonymous, but this is a real client. They purchased a short-term rental for $450,000. It was built in the 90s and it was purchased and placed in service in 2002. The property was eligible for bonus. Performed the site visit, and on a purchase price of $550,000, the cost seg study, we performed a virtual site visit, sorry. The cost seg study cost $1,600, and the net first year depreciation from the cost seg turned into $222,924. So that's literally almost 50% of the purchase price on a short-term rental. And I'm guessing that's because there was a lot of outdoor improvements. When people buy short-term rentals, they have hot tubs, they have decks, they have awnings, they have fire pits, they have sometimes tennis racquetball courts. That stuff is all absolutely phenomenal for bonus depreciation. So the cost seg study cost $1,600 on a $5,500 property, $550,000 property, and it returned $222,000, which is a 50 times payback ratio. That's $82,000 in tax savings in a 37% tax bracket if they are either doing the short-term rental active income or they are real estate professionals. We turned it around in 6 weeks. So that's a cool example. Another one, self-storage. Built a property in 2004. We bought it in 2022. This is actually one of Bolt Storage's properties. A big ticket items for cost seg were the security system, roll-up movable doors, HVAC temperature controlled. Purchased it for $3 million. The study cost $2,800. Net first year depreciation from cost seg was $663,000, or 22% of the purchase price. We put 40% equity into this deal. So literally over half the amount of cash we put in the deal came right back out as depreciation year one. And it deferred $245,000 in taxes at a 37% tax bracket. Took 4 weeks to turn this around. Another one was a massive industrial portfolio that we did in the Northeast, $100 million purchase price. Net first year depreciation from cost seg was $30 million. And it deferred $10 million of taxes. That's 30% of purchase price as a deduction. The studies took a month. It was a rush project, and it was about $15,000 worth of cost seg studies to do that portfolio. So those are 3 examples that we have as real case studies of how this stuff can work.
That's it, man. Not every payback ratio, the bigger the property I've seen, the bigger the payback ratios get. And the hot tubs on that short-term rental were pretty juicy. To your point, it depends if you're going to buy a, tear down on Miami Beach for $1 million. There's not going to be much to cost seg because it's going to be so land heavy. But when they have these, I like to think about like the 4 percentages that matter are the percentage of the land relative to the improvement, the the percentage of the debt, meaning the more debt you have on it, obviously it starts to really squeeze out what you're allowed to do.
Mhm.
Just the general improvement percentages, or the percentages you're going to be allowed to depreciate from the improvements. Gas stations, famously 100%, storage,
Mhm.
call it 30%,
RV
and then
parks
your
are
tax
massive.
rate.
RV parks are
Yep.
massive depreciation targets because it's all ground
Land.
improvements. It's
Yep.
almost all ground improvements, running the electrical, doing those things on the sites.
Yeah. And then your tax rate is going to matter, because if you're a 12% tax person, you may just want to wait until you're in a higher tax year and do a 3115.
Mhm.
One question popped in. Eric says, I work in asset management for a real estate PE fund. Would I qualify as an active participant? If you're an employee of that fund and you don't own 5%, then no. If you own 5% of the company you work for, then yes. So
Or
that's
5% of the
one
promote
thing.
share, maybe on given deals.
I like people. We had this with a client where they like literally kind of structured an employment company where they all took 20%. There were 5 of them, and they didn't all kind of pro rata own all the deals, but they just set up a management company that they all work for, that they all own 20% of, and they put all the employees into that. So obviously, do your own research, talk to your CPA, find a way that works for you.
Mhm. Okay, I had a question. Remember the one that I texted you about last week? A friend of mine said
Yeah.
he was about to do a cost seg study on a deal that he had raised money from, and his CPA said in certain scenarios the LPs actually can't utilize bonus depreciation if it has something to do with personally guaranteeing the loan. What's this issue that people should be aware of, Mitchell?
We're dealing with that with another one too of the partners are all the 3 big partners are co-signers on the debt. And so all the LPs only really get to depreciate their capital account to 0, and then the losses are getting suspended in this one, meaning everyone's capital accounts, including the general partners, are just all going to 0, and everything that would drive their capital accounts negative is all going to be suspended until they get non-recourse debt on the property, in which case that kind of suspension will be released. So
But you can still
partnership tax
depreciate
is
your
tricky.
you can still get your
Yep.
initial investment. So if you made
Mhm.
$100,000 investment in a deal, you can get up to $100,000 of bonus depreciation. Is that correct?
In that example, yeah.
So
And
unless it's a highly levered deal where the bonus depreciation or very 1, 2, 4, 5 heavy,
yep.
unless there's just a ton of bonus,
Yep.
it's going to be tough to kind of take your capital accounts to 0. Is that right?
Or yes, that's right. For the general
Okay.
LP, the one I'm talking about is a gas station. So they that one has some leverage on it, and it's a gas station, which means everything but the land must go. And so we were driving.
Kyle has a question. He says he's a little bit confused when you talk about debt fueling depreciation. He asked, does more debt reduce the value of depreciation? And the answer to that is no. The less equity you put in a deal, and the bigger let's just say for example here, the bonus depreciation is 20% of the purchase price. Okay. If you used a bank debt for 80 and you only put 20% cash in, that makes the depreciation very valuable. That means your bonus depreciation is going to be about the same. If you did an all cash deal, which we did, we closed on an all cash deal yesterday in Illinois. We bought a $1.2 million property for all cash. That actually reduces the value of bonus depreciation because there's so many more equity partners that are sharing in that bonus. Because the bank doesn't take bonus. The bank doesn't have a tax basis in a property. So the more bank debt you use, the juicier your returns can be. But as we know, highly levered real estate is risky real estate. So it doesn't, just from a sponsor side, it doesn't make sense to take a lot of debt right now in this market. Debt's very expensive. So we're doing low leverage. And of course, there's lower tax advantages and lower IRR and lower upside, but we're reducing downside risk by going low leverage. So there's trade-offs in everything in real estate. As a real estate investor, I'm looking at risk-adjusted returns. And my cash is going into a deal. I'm thinking, hey, what are the odds I lose all this cash? How can I protect against that? And then the secondary is, hey, what's my bonus depreciation? What's my equity multiple? What are my cash on cash yields? So it's a little bit more complex of an answer, but I hope that helps.
We talk about recapture, just like, oh, well, when the recapture hits, you just pay the tax. But if you go break a deal and you took all that bonus depreciation and you get recapture at the other end and no cash comes back, well, guess what? Like, you don't want to be there. So yeah, like that's a bad deal.
You're
So
talking about selling a deal at fire sale for, what your current basis is. You'll still have a taxable amount if you bonus the hell out of it.
yeah,
And you're going to have to A, lose your equity, B, lose your property, C, have a tax bill. That's not ideal.
We're talking about the 1 million you bought that you depreciated 250 that you sell for 1.5. Well, what if you sell it for $500,000? There's still some recapture in there. And, when you get into sponsor deals, like you just don't even want to go there. So don't do bad deals, people.
Hey, I've got big news. Next Tuesday, June 20th, I'm hosting a small business tax workshop with the smartest CPA that I know and my personal CPA, Mitchell Baldridge. We're going to go over about 15 tactics that you can utilize as a small business owner to give less money every year to the IRS. We're going to talk about Section 179. We're going to talk about QSBS. We're going to talk about benefits. We're going to talk about how you can write off and deduct as many things as possible related to your business and utilize any unknown or kind of secretive tax loopholes that may be able to help you pay less money to the government. There's a link below in the show notes or in the YouTube description where you can click and register for the small business tax workshop. If you register for it, you'll be sent the recording within a week of it being completed. So make sure you register. The link is in the description below.